Thomas here with Much Props. Going to give you another how-to video. Today I am revisiting a series that I built a couple of things from. I built the reverse bear trap and the Venus flytrap from the movie Saw. From the movies Saw. And I get a lot of requests to purchase those two items, which they sold pretty soon after the videos for them went up. The reverse bear trap is actually the first thing that I ever sold as a prop maker, which is like pretty awesome. But I get these requests all the time to do more Saw things, and I always thought that the little puppet, the Billy the puppet character, was super creepy. I don't want to build like a whole puppet, but I think I'm going to make a mask out of his face. That seems about Saw appropriate. So today we are going to build Billy the puppet's face into a mask for a grown adult. Let's get to building. This one has been on my to-do list for quite a while now. I made the template using the trusty, tried and true foil and duct tape method. There are videos of me showing you how to do this. If you go back, I'll link a couple of them. Print and cut out the template from the free download in the description of the video and trace it onto your materials. I use 6mm for this build due to the drastic curves. It needs to be flexible, but at the same time have a little bit of structure to it. It was not the easiest one to piece together. The cover page on my template explains what the markings are, the colors, the numbers, the letters, all that stuff, so make sure that you read the cover page if you plan on building this. You will notice that most of the template pieces have an R on them. This means that this is the right side, and because it's symmetrical, to get the left side, simply turn the pattern label side down and trace it again. Green highlighted edges mean an outward 45-degree angle cut, with the blue edges meaning an inward 45. Try to lock your wrist while you are making these cuts and pull through as clean as you possibly can. It helps to limit the amount of wobble in your knife and hopefully make a better connection. It also helps if your hobby knife is super sharp, so keep it sharpened or replace the blade with a fresh one. The cheek and jaw have very drastic curves on them, along with the forehead. I try to keep my patterns as simple as possible with as few pieces as possible, but sometimes that means you gotta heat form it a little. So I heat up both sides of the foam and push it against a round object. I use a glass dome that is supposed to be the cover for my back porch light, but it pretty much stays in my workshop all the time. I get asked a lot, can I use a hairdryer to heat form? In my experiences, I would say no. Typically a hairdryer doesn't get hot enough to make the foam pliable enough to shape. You can get heat guns for like under $20 at Walmart and Harbor Freight. I bought this one on Amazon and it was a little bit higher end because it's got a digital readout with different speeds and all that kind of stuff. I like to position my template to one side so that I can set my foam in the same orientation for assembly. It helps me to keep it straight. Generally, I start by closing the darts on a piece, the big V cuts you see on them, and then using the registration marks, I line it up with the corresponding parts. Because the cheeks are so drastic on this mask, you might get a little bit of separation on the seam lines, but it's okay. I'm planning on covering mine with clay foam here in a minute, so I'm not too worried about the seams. Just trust the registration marks. My edges get contact cemented, then they are left to dry for a few minutes. When the edges are no longer wet, just tack the parts together. I work one half at a time so that the glue doesn't sit for too long. Once both halves are assembled, I put contact cement down the middle and join them together. Any seams that I get that refuse to close up, I put a little dab of CA glue on it to force it into place. You can also close it up with some flexible sealant or some other type of adhesive that will allow you to close that gap. The jowls go on over the base just to give it that traditional puppet mouth look. If you wanted to, you could probably cut out the mouth section and then reattach it with some elastic banding to allow for movement while you're talking. I decided just to keep mine simple. I cut the nostrils out of some 10mm foam and then refine the shape with my rotary tool. To get it to lay flat in that divot area on the nose where it meets the cheek area, I had to carve a little wedge on the back side. Looking at the images of the mask, I realized that it's not smooth at all, and I didn't want my seam lines to be prevalent like mid-cheek, so I decided to cover the whole mask in a thin layer of clay foam. I am using Foamo from Cosplay Apprentice for mine. It's what I had on hand. You wet the clay foam just a little bit and the mask itself to get it to stick together well, then you just literally push it on. I also bulked up my cheeks, my eyebrow, and that little split chin on the bottom there, just a little bit to give it some more shape. When I got done, I stuck it outside to dry. It was in the high 90s here in Texas that day, which kind of caused the foam to dry quicker than it needed to, and it left a lot of cracks. For what I wanted the finish to look like, it ended up being perfect for me, but you could also go back and fill those gaps in if it bothered you and you needed a smooth finish. To accentuate the cracks in places and make some more weathering features, I turned on my wood burner and went to work. I even went in some areas and cut off part of the clay foam back to make it look like it had chipped or something to that effect.
2 coats of Plasti-Dip.
I'm sure some of you are wondering why I don't just use white Plasti-Dip on builds like this that are white masks. I don't know what it is, but with the white cans, I usually seem to get bubble issues and other problems, and I wanted to start with a dark base anyway, so it didn't really matter to me. I wanted to build up the color values as I went. I start by making several passes with an off-white acrylic paint from Plat Effects. Then I gradually add some light browns here and there, along with another lighter coat of white over the top of all of that, just building up the depth of paint. To vary the colors even further and hide some of my brush strokes, I sponged on a mix of different colors. This gives a nice grimy patina to the mask. For my red swirls on the cheeks and the lipstick on his mouth, I just use an acrylic paint pen. The coverage is pretty good, and it's a bit easier for me to control the paint pen than it is to hold the paintbrush. Every time I go to Harbor Freight, I buy a bunch of these tinted safety glasses. They are dirt cheap and make great lenses for masks and helmets, so I use them all the time. With my face shield on, I cut them into shape. Anytime you're using a cutting wheel on a rotary tool, make sure to wear a shield. I had one explode on me one time, and had I not been wearing a face shield, it would have taken my eye out. I hot glue these glasses in because super glue will fog up this plasticky acrylic or whatever they're made out of and leave this white residue behind on the surface. To add the red eyes, I just used that acrylic paint pen again and colored it on.
for strapping, I used some 1-inch elastic banding and sandwiched it between the mask and some thin layers of EVA foam. To figure out the length you need for your banding, all you have to do is figure out where the mask rests on your face, then stretch the elastic just a little bit past that point and cut.
And we are finished. How creepy is this thing? I obviously took it a few steps further than what's actually in the movies. He's not as beaten and cracked all up like I made him, but you know I kind of have to do that in Much Props fashion to dirty it up and make it more grimy than it actually is. Mine is a little bit more kind of a grayish tone, whereas the actual one is a lot more white. I even went in with that sponge and gave it a cool texture, and I really like how the Fomo covers up all the seams that I don't want, but because it was hot outside, it just left all these cracks in my foam material because it was shrinking. And I just kind of went with it. And then I even peeled back some of those areas to make nice little cracks, almost like the porcelain or whatever Billy is built out of has been chipping away. But yeah. Maybe you'll try and make one of these masks yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to make something super creepy to give other people nightmares and walk around and randomly surprise people and hopefully not make a kid tricycle around on it. Yeah, that kind of stuff just creeps me out. Maybe you'll get some. And inevitably, they're going to ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these. Tell them, Much Props. So, I mean, you just kind of put it on. Oh, I did add nose holes there so I can breathe. Just kind of put it on. Put on this black wig.
Congratulations, you are still alive. Most people are so ungrateful to be alive. But not you. Not anymore.
If you like what I do here on YouTube and want to see more builds like this one, please consider joining these awesome people listed here with me over on Patreon. Let's build a bigger, better, more creative community together.